Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is the third Thursday of December, which means that it is Get Cracking on Christmas Thursday of this month, also the final one for 2022. So I decided to go big or go home. And so I went big. I have this adorable stamp set that arrived from Hello Bluebird. It is the Snowman Hugs. I am really a softie when it comes to snowman images, and the ones from Hello Bluebird are just too adorable. I decided to color it in with one color scheme, and I am going to show you one time the coloring of this specific image. All of the combinations are listed on my blog post, but I'm only showing you this one because I really wanted to focus on the assembly of 5 different cards. Lately, when I have been doing my voiceovers and I'm mostly featuring clean and simple cards, CAS cards, I'm always talking about you can change this card up by, for example, using pattern paper, or whenever I'm using pattern paper by ink blending, or whenever I'm ink blending by doing something else. And so I realized that lately I have been giving tons of ideas while talking in my video and only showing you one. So I thought that maybe getting my winter collection of Hello Bluebird stamps could be like the excuse that I needed to just feature one, in this case 2 similar stamps from one stamp set. You can also do it all with one of the images. I just thought maybe I can feature several card designs, but this time keeping all of the color scheme things on the cards the same. So that's why I have colored all of these images exactly the same way. I just changed like the accessories, once in yellow, once in blue, but definitely blue and yellow are my colors for these 5 cards today. You can of course change the colors, but in this video I really wanted to feature 5 different cards using the same main elements. So if you like coloring, like for example while watching TV, and you just stamp out the same bunch of images, then you can have some fun later on just assembling. And even though I from time to time do that, I don't do it often, but I do it from time to time. I did it with this new stamp set. I must admit that even when I have colored all of these images, if I need to create 5 same cards, I just go mental. I cannot handle repetition. And so if I want to color things repeatedly, like with the same color scheme like I did right now, it's great to do that in front of the TV. And then I create videos for you, so I don't want to repeat myself on my channel. I don't want to repeat myself in the same video, and I just don't enjoy it, all of the repetition, if I don't get distracted enough. So today it's all about the 5 different cards, and even though I am showcasing 5 completely different designs, you can still create tons more with exactly the same color scheme. I know, but I cannot feature it all in one video. I think this video, if you survive it, it's like 40 minutes. It's a really long one. If you survive this video, then definitely you have 5 more ideas to go with, and maybe even more while I am blabbing away. I'm going to try to fill up this video with a voiceover, being actively talking and hopefully sharing more ideas even. But truly, I have never made a video this long. Originally, I thought of showcasing this coloring of this one image in real time and then doing another video with all of the assembly. So if you don't like watching the coloring, then you can go only to the assembly, or if you just learn a lot by seeing me color, then this video would have been amazing by doing it real time. Now, I asked the question on Instagram, and there the most of you responded that they prefer one video. Of course you can skip through, or if you think that it's going too slow, you can still speed it up if you want to. So I know that there are several ways to watch videos, so definitely do what feels right for you. But I also had several people answer me that if I would do them separately, that they would love to have a real-time coloring. So maybe I will try to do that in January, maybe February, just beginning of next year. Maybe I'll show their feature an image with several parts, maybe just have some real-time coloring, and that might help you as well if you want to color along while watching the video. But yeah, so next, after all the coloring and die cutting, I just tried to have 5 different layouts, as you could see just really quickly a few seconds back. And so it was really a work in progress. The layout kind of thing worked. I had 5 vague ideas, but the execution wasn't always as easy. You will see that in this card. I have these lovely stitched scallop basic edges from My Favorite Things. It's one of my newest items, and I really wanted to use it. It's a fun way to have like a lovely edge and then add your pattern paper, maybe your ink blended area underneath, and then have this lovely border. So I wanted to feature that with the pattern paper, and originally I started with yellow pattern paper. The idea behind it was that I only had a few elements of yellow in the coloring of this image. As you can see, just the small accessories were yellow, and so I could have like the reference towards the yellow underneath. Now you will see me assemble this card. I'm adding the joy from the big Christmas greetings. I'm going to stamp it straight on there. You can also stamp it, die cut it, depending on what you have in your stash. I'm just going to stamp it straight away on that white panel and then add it to my card base. Really simple card. I think this card is the most simple card that I'm going to create, and still it was the one where I struggled. You will see it in a few seconds, but maybe you saw it in the beginning. I will end up with a card with blue pattern paper. There is a ton of white on this card, and that's perfectly fine. Depending whether you like white cards, whether it scares you, you will end up with a card like this if you like the design or if you like the reasoning behind it. But since there is so much white, that yellow was really soft. And so for some reason in my head it just wasn't working. The yellow goes perfectly with the yellow that I have. It's one of the lighter markers in my combination, so that's fine. I added here a bit of grounding using the same blue as I did on the Snowman to have like the snow vibe on the grounding kind of area as well, but it just wasn't jumping out. So I thought, well, maybe accessories will do it. So I went for some embellishments here. I have the how is it called? It is the Snowdrifts. Well, in case you want to know what I used exactly and the right names, definitely check it out below in the description box. I don't have links towards shops. Why? Because I am not affiliated towards them. Well, in Belgium there is just this regulation that you have to be an independent or independent aside from your job, and it's just tons of administration, and I don't have the time. If I want to keep up my videos and my cards and have tons of time to create, I don't want to be stuck with the administration. So I'm really sorry if that is inconvenient for you, but I cannot share links because I cannot do affiliate links. Definitely not at this moment. If I would at a certain point consider going as an independent or anything like that, then I will definitely add them, but for now I just list all of the supplies. So as you can see, the blue, for me it works way better because there was just a ton of white. I think if the white area of my card was smaller, then I might not have had to use the blue paper, but will I ever know? I don't know if I will recreate this one. But yeah. Next card is completely different. If you love creating scene cards, but you still want to do like more of a clean and simple kind of vibe, then this card is for you. I have this winter birch scene from Hello Bluebird, which is like this die cut that you can see on the right. And if you die cut it, you get the birch trees, you get two hills, really lovely. Here I really went all out there using the same inks in the background as I use on the accessories of my images. So blue towards yellow. If you mix them, you get a green. So I just tried to, well, fade it both out into white close to each other. And I didn't want to have the yellow all over, I just wanted it on the bottom. Now, when I compared it to my image, the yellow just wasn't warm enough. So I decided to add a bit of this distress ink on top, giving me that lovely warm yellow border. Now, if you love creating scenes, of course you can add multiple images, and I love doing that from time to time as well. But for me, also a thing for clean and simple is to use one image. One image, it can be as big or as small as you want to. In this case, I used this adorable image from the Snowman Hugs stamp set. It's kind of a big one. So even though it is only ink blending in scenery and one image, it will be a full card. So in case you normally make a scene with tons of images and you want to try clean and simple, but it's just a big stretch, then this can be an in-between to just get to know the feel of just using only one image, still having the scene in the back, and then you can build down towards maybe a white card. I don't know, I'm just trying to convince everyone of the clean and simple cards. I think that's clear, but don't forget, scene cards are gorgeous as well. I'm always amazed by everyone and all the creations out there. So here, just one thing to make sure if you want to do the ink blending and you're not going to just add a panel behind one panel, you can do that as well to just limit the amount of errors that you can make. You can do a panel behind, ink blend there, and then just add the trees on top, add the hills on top. But just bear in mind when ink blending that you have all of the elements facing the right way, that you have all of the tops together and then start ink blending. It was sometimes a puzzle also with the snowy hills, with the birch trees in front. You can see that there are these tiny areas, and I just really had to make sure that I had the right side up when adding a bit of that blue to my hills. So that was the only kind of thing that I had to figure out ahead of time. Also, since I'm not blending one panel to get this lovely gradient for in the back, I also had to check with the previously blended pieces that I sort of had the same darkness everywhere, the same warmth, you know. So I'm slowly building up that scene, ink blending with my distress inks. Any ink that you love using can be used, of course. Just make sure not to have filthy fingers so that you will not smear any inks on it. So from time to time I'm just creating the puzzle with the die on the side to help me figure out the orientation of each piece. And once everything is ink blended, I started assembling my card on top of an A2 sized card base. So there we go. I am going to add this complete scene exactly how it was intended. I'm using my adhesive roller. I'm adding really tons of adhesive here and there because we have these tiny elements that also need to stick. I also die cut this scene die again to have some items higher up. I will have the frame doubled up, I will have the trees doubled up, and all of the rest will be flat on there. So here I was just figuring out where everything had to go. It was really funny. Also this tape, it's really handy. It is going to be permanent, but if you're quick enough, you can still remove things and reposition it where necessary. And I truly love this. I don't know about you, but whenever I'm inlaying things or reassembling a scene like this, it's like a puzzle. I love doing that. It's really a joy, and then in the end it's just perfect. So great. So I almost have everything here, and as you can see, it's like the scene was just behind. I think it kind of succeeded. Also in the trees there are these 3 tiny areas that aren't filled up, and I first thought that it could just stay white, but then while assembling it was just a bit strange. So with a bit of effort I added a tiny bit of blue in those areas to then later on lay it in those tiny areas. So the trees are going on there and the frame. And it is just a tiny bit of dimension, but it already helps, and I still wanted to add all of the other things with a bit more of dimension with thin foam squares, so that way it was really lovely that it wasn't too bulky underneath. So to be able to ink blend a tiny bit of blue on these small pieces, I used some purple tape to keep them in place. It's a really handy trick. Can also work for alphabets that you are later on coloring or ink blending. Just add a bit of purple tape, make sure it sticks to your mat that you're working on, and then just scribble it on there, the ink. So there we go. It's maybe not realistic that there are really holes and you can see the sky through it, but we are creating cards. So for the image I am going to use thin foam squares. I am also going to splatter some white gouache. I'm doing that after adhering the images because when it snows it goes on top of your head as well. It's going in front of your face. So I just made sure to splatter when everything was already adhered. And then I lay this card aside. Now, since I edited the creation of these cards, I was able to continue in the video, just paste the next step behind, but actually the assembly or the addition of the sentiment I only did right at the end after all of the other cards were created. So just take that in mind. Normally I set it aside because the white gouache needs to dry so that I'm not smearing everything. So I did that. Once it was dry, after all of the rest, I started on the sentiment. Now for this sentiment, I'm also using the big Christmas greetings. I'm also trying to show you several sentiments today. You can use one set for the 5 cards if you want to. But I just thought that you might not have that specific set that I'm using all the time, and then it might just seem like that's the only one, and that's not the case. So I try to incorporate several sentiments in these cards because maybe you don't have sentiments from Hello Bluebird, maybe you don't even have a snowman from Hello Bluebird, but there are other brands that have snowman, that have similar sets, so definitely check in your stash what you have fun with that. I also, well, you can reuse the same sentiment, but as I already mentioned, I don't like repeating myself, so I really need to change things up. But it's not that you cannot use the same. Okay, so here I just went behind the heat embossed sentiment with my liquid glue. I tried not to add too much because otherwise it would start oozing and I don't want that. And then for the falala, I am using thin foam squares again. I'm going to snip them a bit smaller, shorter, to make sure that they can fit behind the white heat embossed elements, because this is vellum where I white heat embossed it on, and you can see through it. So if you don't pay attention, then all of the adhesive will be shown, and that is something that you don't want. So I made sure to cut it smaller, and it took me a bit of time, but it was definitely worth it. I really love how it is just a tiny bit higher, the same height as the images. So I'm just making sure here that it's sort of straight, and then I'm going to inlay the sentiment to have it exactly spaced out as Hello Bluebird intended, because I really love how it is just featured on the stamp set. So for me it's already the perfect design. I don't want it to be wonky. You can definitely, but I didn't want it on this card because the falala underneath the other part of the sentiment is completely straight, so that's why I wanted to have the falala straight as well. So that is a second card, I think, already. And then let's go to the third one. Now the third one, I'm going to do a bit of ink blending. I'm only going to use the blue here, but for this card I wanted to show you And it was actually funny because I didn't intend to use this stencil. But I'm using a stencil today. I'm using one of my favorites from My Favorite Things. It is the, what is it called? It's the watercolor wash rectangle stencil. But originally, I wanted to use the leftover from my die cuts. I'm going to use this stencil. You can use it completely. I'm twisting it, so that's already a change that you can do for your design maybe. And while blending, I decided upon not going completely down. I decided to have just the edge on the top and then have a fade out into the white, which is something that I didn't intend doing either, but I did. The original idea that I had was to take the leftover from a die cut from the Nesting Decal Mini Slimline die. I'm going to use that one, the die cut piece, later on. But the leftover that I had, there you also have that gorgeous edge. You can use it as a stencil. If you don't have this stencil or you don't have the die, but you want like a really funny stenciled look, I think this would be great. Just ripping your paper, as I did in some previous videos. It is really so fun. It is cheap because you just take a cheap piece of printer paper or a leftover piece of paper, you rip it, you have this gorgeous edge, and you use that as some sort of a stencil to create a stunning edge. That works. You can also do like I did in the past, like that ripped edge and then doing several colors, layers, and doing several ripped edges on the blended piece. Definitely, there are a zillion other ways to create cards with just this palette, with just these images, and it's just so fun. And even while I'm blabbing away here, there are other ideas that come to my mind, and I'm like, there's just no stopping once you get it going, you know. So here as well, I'm just splattering white gouache to get that snowy vibe. I had not adhered my snowman yet, so in this case my snowman will not have splatters, but that's okay. It is all up to you to decide whether you prefer it with white gouache all over or not. So I had a tiny boo-boo on the top. I wanted to keep it in this video. I tried with an eraser, but it's an adhesive eraser. It's not necessarily the right eraser, but I just tried, and then I just used the white Jelly pen to soften it, and it actually worked. I am not bothered by any leftovers there. Now for the sentiment, again, I let this dry, okay? I went back in the moment it was dry because I'm going to white heat emboss on earth, and I'm going to add the joy as well. Again, later on, if you want to revisit the combinations or the products that I used, I am going to list them all in the description box here, also my blog post. So definitely check all of that out if you're interested. So I have the On Earth, and then I am going to add joy. I'm also going to use the negative to help me inlay the joy so that it is perfectly spaced, but because again, I just love how it all is designed, and there are several brands that are like this, but like Hello Bluebird, they really think about their stuff, and I just love the places, well, the wide area in between the letters here is just perfect, and I want it to be exactly that way. So I just want that first letter to be straight, and then I'm going to use that other part here. My glue was working against me also. Sometimes there are some struggles here and there. So the glue wasn't really working, so I'm letting it dry here, but it isn't glued on, you know. This should be like in a part of bloopers, because all of the effort is just for nothing. I made sure to unclog my glue. Wow, it is definitely showing that I'm doing a longer video than usual. I'm thirsty, but no, I'm just going to continue because I think it has the most, it's pure, you know, all of the bloopers in it. So here I'm just inlaying. I used my my reverse tweezers here, which is a really handy tool. Truly, if you don't have it yet, there is like a world gonna open the moment that you buy any kind of tweezers, but use the reversed one because they're really genius. In the beginning it was a lot of things to get used to for me, but it's great. So that is my third card. Now the fourth one is really like all out there, and it was also I had this idea, warm hugs. So there are several variations of this kind of sentiment by other brands as well, so in case you have other brands did that. And this is like this gorgeous nesting decal mini slimline die from Hello Bluebird. I love the nesting decal. I also love like the A2 size. It's just wonderful because all of those straight edges, it's like, well, this is unique. I love it. I want to use it all the time. But yeah, so I took the same distressings as I used on the scene card. The other cards are just with blues. Depending on the colors that you have on your image, I think it can work better or less. So I'm doing the same thing, the warm yellow. Now I'm trying to get a gradient, but in a diagonal way. This panel is going to completely be ink blended with these distress inks, and then we will have some fun with, well, still the background. Now originally, because here we go again, I had another plan in my mind. Originally I just wanted to go in this diagonal way from yellow to blue, nothing else, okay? And then I must admit that this card, or the addition of the bubbles, the circles, were really inspired by Sarah Soppy. She is incredible. I have talked about her already a few times. She's amazing. She inspires me like a great deal, and she has like this unique style, but at the same time really friendly style, and she's mind-blowing. She surprises me every time again. Combinations that she uses, the way she colors, the bold backgrounds that she from time to time creates. And she created a card, I think even that maybe she used the nesting decal as well, but also a mini slimline with the warm hugs. And she used like the penguin set. I think it's penguins on ice, I'm not sure. Really a fun one. It is a greenish kind of card, spectacular, bold, perfect. And so here my gradient, it was just, sometimes you just have things that are missing, and my gradient here towards yellow, it was less flawless as with my scene, in my opinion, and it was missing something. Lately I've been using that like bouquet effect again, and so normally I do that with white pigment ink. I'm also going to use it here, but normally I sometimes also use the lighter color in my variation of colors here. But today I'm going to use that bouquet effect, but I'm using the blue, I'm using the yellow, and I'm overlapping on the other side of this panel, on the other color with the yellow, with the blue, and then I'm going to use that white pigment ink on top. It just was to soften this panel, because now it's really yellow, blue, and it's in your face, which is great. You can go all out there if you're creating a background like this. I definitely think so. But it just was a bit, I don't know, too much. It can be because we have two completely different color families. I don't know if that was specifically why for me it just wasn't feeling exactly how I wanted it to be. But definitely those bubbles will help me. So in case you haven't seen the card from Sarah Soppy, I hope that I will recall, you see where I'm going, I hope that I will recall to link towards that card, because definitely if you haven't seen it, it will inspire you in a way. I think it's a wonderful card. So I'm going to link towards that one. It is with blue and greenish colors, but gorgeous. So what I'm doing here, as I said, I'm doing that bouquet effect, and normally I'm trying to keep, like, if I reuse the colors, the specific colors from the back, and not only like that white pigment ink, I normally stay like in the zone. You can see it here as well. I sort of stuck to the zone yellow with the yellowish colors, but then I realized going a bit into that blue really was like stretching it and just also softening that gradient in between. For me, that was really a good thing to do. So now I'm just cleaning it off. I'm going to use the blue. I'm not cleaning it that well either. So later on, also with the white pigment ink, you will see that there is still some left over, and it's getting blended in the background. But that's all up to you, of course, what you prefer doing. But for me, I'm really glad that I did those bubbles. It's a bit more bold, must admit, but I love it. So from time to time, make sure to mask off some areas if you have a stencil like this with several areas that can go into the background. But I just went for it, and I kept adding. And also the sentiment later on will definitely mute that background as well. So here I'm just doing some bubbles, again using those inks that I already used, trying to differentiate a bit in between the sizes, of course, and just have fun with that. There we go, some lighter, some darker, but definitely for me the bouquet effect, if you want to create that one, I definitely suggest getting a white pigment ink, because it really changes that whole vibe, you know. So this, I also never know where I need to stop. I don't know about you, but there is like this continuous doubt about, have I added enough? Am I overdoing it or not? So if you like it, you can stop. If you don't like it, just continue. If you don't like it, why would you stop, you know? So here I cleaned sort of the blue off, but definitely the white isn't completely white, and it doesn't has to be. It just has to just give a bit more to this background, give it a bit more interest even. But as you can see here, I could have stopped. But for me, definitely that bouquet effect is just, the white is doing it all. The white is definitely a game changer. So in between, check whether you like it, whether you think something else is needed. Take the white. And just keep adding. And have fun while blending, because I truly love ink blending. I don't know about you, but I think it's really therapeutic. It's just relaxing for me. So just keep blending. It's like the Finding Nemo. Just keep blending, just keep blending. I think that works. I definitely think that could be another way of seeing it. So yeah, complete background here. I think that's also a difference from the other cards that I'm showing. You can go big with the background, big with the blending, or with the pattern paper, or you can do it minimalistic and just do a part. But in this case, with this big sentiment, I just thought that it would be nice. I also have some other cards to share with you with this sentiment, so I hope that you love the sentiment as much as I do. Warm hugs, it's really sweet. But I have other cards with it created that also, there was a plan, and then I did something else. But that's for another time. But really, it's tons of fun, and I love this sentiment with like the mini slimline. I love it. I think it's wonderful, because it is a horizontal sentiment, so that way it also leads towards kind of a horizontally orientated card for me. You can do it vertical and it will be the perfect size for an A2, and you can do a scenery underneath. I contemplated about using this warm hugs sentiment with the scene that we created, because you can do that. You can add it right in front of those birch trees and just have fun with the sentiment. Now originally, there are a lot of originalities in my plans here, but originally I just wanted to have a white sentiment, but then I thought, with that warm yellow, why don't I use gold? And so I also contemplated about turning my panel around. Then just for my sentiments, I ended up with the warm hugs in the blue area. I think it's just it just was jumping a bit more out there, and I also have like more blue in the coloring of this image than yellow, so therefore I thought it was just the way to go. So that was fun. But as you could see, you can turn this panel around as well. If you keep your coloring or your colors, your bright colors in the same family, that blend will go easier. I think maybe the bouquet effect will not be needed, but here we have such different colors that I like it this way. Now for the sentiment, as I already die cut it twice out of white cardstock, I just made sure to add them on top. And then with the gold, I slightly offset it because I wanted a slight bit of white from underneath the gold. So sometimes I find when you lay things out and it's a bit wonky, it can be with the sentiment as well, with the alphabet set sentiment, and you lay it out wonky, that sometimes you realize that it works better. Or in the case that I was trying to figure it out layout wise, and I just let that gold glitter on top of the white and it was offset, I was like, oh, offset, it's better. It wasn't the intention, but I like it more. So that's often how I get to changing my idea into something completely different, by just laying things quickly, wonky, and seeing more possibilities that way. So I'm adding the sentiment here with some liquid glue, and then I will add my images with some more thin foam squares. I truly used a lot of thin foam squares on these 5 cards, but I love this adhesive. I recently bought some more. I always have this backup, you know. I cannot live without my thin foam squares. I recently had the issue, and I think I already mentioned it in another video, or maybe I didn't, and it's in an upcoming video, but I had the issue that my glossy accents were gone, as in used up. I had no longer glossy accents, and it's really a bummer. I love using glossy accents, also on a snowman when you have the buttons. I mean, how cool is this? I only used stickles on this image, actually, on the final card for today. It is the most simple card, I think, of all of them. And so that's why I just added a few more glittery elements. But definitely on all of the 5 cards you can add glossy accents, you can add stickles, you can add embellishments where I didn't, because they are all possibilities, you know. Here for this card I'm going to just add a soft ink blend back, but really a soft one. It's going to be in blue. You can also do the yellow if you want to. I'm just masking off my edges because this is a die cut piece, die cut rectangle with the basic rectangles from my elephant. So you have this gorgeous border that I really love keeping white, but you do you. If you don't want to keep it white or you don't have a border, don't bother about it. I just masked off the sentiment because I wanted the background to start behind the images, and the only thing that I will mention here, it's just between us. I slightly put it wonky, like the post-it tape, but later on we will add the images in front and it will actually not be a big deal. But normally I take like purple tape, I mask off the edges, I make sure that my panel is straight on my craft mat. That way I can use those squares on my craft mat to help me get a straight horizontal line with some masking tape. Now I had my post-it tape out, which is really lovely. It will not tear my paper for sure. The post-it tape is really handy, but it's more expensive also, so I have taken just a piece that I needed, not too big either, so I couldn't see with my craft mat where I was going, whether it was straight or not. So it can just be a reminder for you if you want it completely straight. Use your craft mat that you have. Take a longer piece of tape or post-it tape or whatever tape you're using to mask your sentiment off. And then just start blending. I blended all on the top. I never thought going this high, but in the end I ended up doing that to soften my blend a bit more, to have it more, well, less blobby. And then I peeled off that post-it tape. It's slightly crooked, but definitely I'm not going to use that line exactly to add my images. I'm going to put it a tiny bit lower and you will not see it. You will definitely need to take a lineal to see whether it is straight or not. So it works. So this, you can stop here. Let's just make that clear. You can add gorgeous embellishments. Here I am again with that Snowdrifts thingy. And I'm just going to add them once I am happy with placement. Then I'm going to add this panel on top of a card base, and then I'm going to add some stickles, as I said. The stickles that I'm using is the Stardust. It's my favorite stickles. It's thanks to Julia from Craft Room Adventures that I have this one. And she once told me, like, we did like a crafty moment together. It was really fun. Julia, if you're watching, we need to do it again. Like via FaceTime. And she was crafting, I was crafting. She had tons of stickles. And I didn't really have stickles, I think, at the time. And she told me, like, there are tons of gorgeous stickles, but Stardust, once you used it, it's really the best. And it is. I also have Diamond, and it's great, but it's not better than Stardust. Stardust is just an overall amazing stickles kind of bottle, and it's just perfect. So I added it on the white details, I added it on the scarves, on the darker areas. I used my wand here to get rid of some excess, and once that is on there, my card is finished. Really simple, but I think I've shown you 5 ways, and I talked about more ways even, to just create several cards the same color. You can also change every time the colors, but just to show you here, it was really the purpose to show you all of the possibilities, and even I didn't achieve that. I'm not there yet with all of them. So here I will just show you an up close of all of the cards. This one is really simple. You use your pen and paper. This one is also really simple. Just ink blending. Like, just create a background. You can use stencils if you want to create a background. You can use it partially, or you can use it completely. You can create a tiny scene, or you can go with like a panel that you're completely going to ink blend, and then add your images. I hope that this video today inspired you, that one of the cards at least took the attention for you. Don't forget, it's Get Cracking on Christmas. We are almost at Christmas, so if you need some inspiration, here you have it. Also, there are tons of other crafters joining the Get Cracking on Christmas with Jen Churkes. So check it all out, get inspired, get behind your desk and start creating, have some fun. Thank you for being here and for watching this really long video. You survived. I want to thank you all definitely for being here and sticking. And I wish you all an incredible day, and I'll be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!